and why?
Biggest success, I think, moving over here to US permanently.
Okay.
Most of the folks, that are coming from Europe are on a secondment for 2 or 3 years. For Cape Wind, I really want to do this offshore thing, right? And I thought, once we get this Cape Wind done, there's just like, ample business over here. So I was not really worried about moving here and not having a ticket back, right? I mean, that's a big thing. Having a local contract, you move here, you said, that's it, just deal with it. If you're here on a delegation, you come over, I mean, you do your job, but again, just like, it's safe to say you're going home, right?
It's different. Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to the Intergenius Podcast with Joe Patch IV.
Welcome to another episode of the Intergenius Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Patch. It's good to be back with you again this week. Today, our guest in the hot seat is Stephan Schwab. He is the Offshore Wind Substation Manager for WSP. Stephan, thanks for making time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, hey, let's take it right from the top. I always want to get a little bit of background on every guest. So give us a little background, grow up, where'd you go to school, et cetera, and kind of how did you land to, where you are today?
Well, that could be a long story. I mean, actually, I was raised in a small city in Germany. Mother and a younger brother of mine. Let's say regular life, right? I mean, school, some sports. I was a passionate swimmer back in the days, and then went to the local Nuremberg Technical College or University, I think would say now, and studied civil engineering. Sort of kind of back in the days, at least, we didn't really have an idea of what you want to, make out of your life. So pretty much ended up in civil engineering because there was just like, a software trade and a profession, and there was only limited people out there back in the day. So that's basically why I picked it.
Yeah, well, it's a good solid path, right? I mean, it's easy to get a good stable job in engineering, man. You're set to go.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, when you think about it, it's like, civil engineering, you want to do something, that's impressive, some big stuff. You soon realize that, with that comes a lot of commitment. You most probably have to relocate, which I actually did quite often through my life. I think those things you don't really grasp at that point in time when you make that choice. You always think like you end up with your friends, your neighborhood, your town that you live and raised.
Sure.
And then you start making decisions, and they basically define your life. And then you're more in at least for myself, I try to be more in an active mode rather than a reactive mode.
Right.
And looking where I lived and where I worked and which project I executed. I mean, right now I'm Boulder, Colorado. I never would have thought I would end up here. So. Yeah. Let's hope that's for a longer period of time.
Exactly.
But you never know.
Yeah. Well, tell us. I mean, let's transition in that. Now you're in the Boulder office for WSP, and tell us a little bit about your role. What are you doing? What's on the plate these days?
Right now, so offshore wind in US is fairly new. So I have basically moved permanently to the US in 2011, and the idea was to build the first offshore wind farm in the US, which was Cape Wind back in the days. So I started the whole business with Siemens, 2007 maybe, and was very intrigued about, merging different markets. I mean, it was basically a transmission distribution market with the oil and gas, which didn't really exist at that point in time in Europe. And then, working in this, I got the opportunity to work as the project manager for the platform in the US. And made the jump over here.
Right.
Worked out very well. I mean, for the first 3 years, with some ups and downs, but we got the project pretty far. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the funding together, so the project died. I had to move on. They moved me up to different projects. Worked up in Calgary for a while on an HVDC project. From there, went to Winnipeg. Went back for a different job opportunity to Raleigh, where we actually just like back in the days bought a house. So I was always commuting, between Canada and the US, every second, every third week with my wife, and a pregnant wife. And then early last year, I reached out to one of my former clients with Cape Wind,
Right.
and he's pretty active, was ever pretty active in the offshore market. And I was just like looking and following it up on LinkedIn a lot of times, and just like saw that there are a lot of discussions about offshore wind. Leases were bought. You saw a lot of people moving back into offshore wind. So I just gave him a call, trying to understand where this business is really headed, and if it's serious this time. You don't want to just like go back into a market that's supposed to be dying. So he was pretty happy for me to reach out again, and kept talking for a couple of weeks, actually 2-3 months, and then we were as far to basically agree on an offer and move me over here to Boulder. Now here I'm sitting as the offshore wind platform manager, basically, in Colorado, far off. The way we do it, we're a pretty scattered team. We have some folks down in Houston and New Orleans, and some others over on the West Coast, San Francisco, Portland, up Oregon, as well as obviously in New York, Boston. That's where the whole offshore business is. Works pretty well. I'm 2 hours off, but we talk, on a regular basis,
Sure.
So it works very well. And, looking into the future, I have a pretty good spot, considering the East Coast, the West Coast picking up, and there's also something moving already down the Gulf of Mexico. So, for me, easy access for all the coasts in the U.S.
Yeah, you're very well centrally located, certainly from either coast, and from being down south. Where is looking at the trends in this, in the business, looking at the offshore wind. Are you seeing more development on the East Coast, West Coast, down in the Gulf of Mexico? Where are you guys moving? Where are you concentrating some of your efforts?
Concentrating definitely is the East Coast. That's where everything is. That's where all the developers sit. That's where all the leases are. There's news coming out every other week about lease areas being investigated or being bought. Most of the projects are New England, off of Massachusetts. New Jersey has some. It goes all the way down to Virginia.
Okay.
So this is where all the investors, coming on, and it's basically driven by Europe. There's
Why is that?
Well, there's, it's like I said, it's supposed to be starting with Cape Wind, and that was I think 2013 is when it just like died.
Mm-hmm.
Europe at that time, they really just like picked it up. They had some ups and downs in the beginning, had a rough start as well. Steep learning curve, and now, obviously, the people see big opportunities in the U.S., and that's where everybody's jumping on now. With not having there's no resource pool offshore wind. There's no supply chain in the U.S. either. We're tapping into oil and gas, obviously, but that's a different market. If you compare oil and gas to transmission distribution, that's sort of a big merger coming. So at the moment, with all the experience over in Europe, the developers are looking at a reliable, fast and good, good budgeted solution, rather than just like having to struggle here in the U.S. building up a supply chain, building the resources. Right. Which is actually, falling back on the hands of like companies like us, where we're just like picking individuals out of the former Cape Wind project, for example. I think we have 5, 6, 7 people picked up from the former Cape Wind project. Uh-huh. Most of the others basically sending over their resources from Europe for a secondment or a delegation, whatever you may call it, for about 2 to 3 years, to build up their teams here. But having said that, those guys are going back to Europe after that time, and then you either have built up your team here and your expertise and your knowledge, or not. And so there's a big challenge here in that market coming, and it's similar to what I've seen in Europe. But at that time, power generation business was pretty much down. So we could pick up all the resources from a power generations part and move them into transmission. So at least, we had some resources who had a clue of what's going on. Now here, there's no real downturn on the generation side. So you really have to find resources, build your pool of expertise, and then just pull the teams together.
Right.
And that has been done basically, the developers have to do that, the utilities have to do that, the permitting authorities have to do that, engineering entities like WSP has to do it. So it's vast.
Let me ask, where are you at on that curve, as far as being able to have a team together to go out and to execute some projects? How far away are you?
I think there's a big step coming for the work we're doing right now, and we have some cooperations with European companies.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty good set. I mean, we're supporting mainly on the PE stamping is a big thing on the engineering side in the US. We have pretty good grip on the basic geotechnical data, mid-ocean data, those evaluation. We have some structural engineers, so we can do some jacket foundation for turbines. But in regards of building those big platforms, there's much more coming. The other challenge is also the regulation, US codes and standards, not really existing. So we're participating in a couple of workshops. There was a workshop with National Renewable Energy Lab here in Boulder, talking about codes and standards on the electrical side for platforms. And there are various other organizations out there and groups sitting together trying to hammer out, which US codes still apply, which we can basically pull over from the API from the oil and gas business. Okay. And which should be taken over from Europe, basically sort of assimilated here in the US. So that's another big challenge. And again, resources missing. It's a big challenge.
Yeah, it's a tough mix. I mean, you're trying to build an infrastructure for something where there's not all the rules and regulations in place, right? There's not those deep channels of teams that have those resources that you can align really well and hit the ground running, because it's a bit of a moving target as I see it. One of the questions I have too, what kind of projects in terms of size would you guys want to approach? I mean, how many, whether it's dollars or megawatts of power, where's that sweet spot that you think?
Yeah, and again, there's despite Europe basically had this, slow learning curve, right? Smaller projects, about 100 megawatts going into 400 megawatts, and then which was basically a majority in Europe. And then, they had the HVDC projects, so the large ones, basically where you combine those smaller ones into a large HVDC transmission project. Here in the US, it is at the moment, has started with some 400 megawatt, they're already looking now at 1,200 megawatts, and they're starting to increase in size. They're going to move further out to sea. So, AC versus DC technology is now a point that's being discussed. Okay. And it's just fast paced in the US. It's not like let's build just like a couple of projects the same size, build some expertise, some experience. It's just like, okay, guys, we got to build bigger. You got to look into another solution. Sure. So it's I mean, like I said, it's challenging. It's interesting. I mean, that's why I like the business. Yeah. But it's not like you can sit and digest the information that you have. You're constantly moving and just like, okay, pull resources. Some expertise over from Europe, see what you have in-house. Right. Talk with your partners and just like build the next one. So
Wait, do you think HVDC still has a place in that market?
Definitely has. I mean, what is distance to shore? I don't know. I mean, so far we're pretty close, in a couple of miles out on the coast, but as the wind farms grow, you want to be further out at sea. Exactly. And that basically introduces the DC, not so much the megawatts maybe, but the distance to shore. Sure. Even though and I have to catch up things. I mean, a lot of things have been have developed over the past couple of years where I was just like absent in this industry. but there's way more capability in the AC solution than it was back in the days. But nevertheless, yes, and DC is becoming. But looking again into the supply chain, so far there's no real, at least maybe 2 or 3 fabricators who could build a platform here in the US. Right. And that's the AC. And now looking at the HVDC platforms, which is 12,000 tons maybe.
Wow.
Those for oil and gas are usually built in the Emirates, somewhere over there.
Sure.
So again, you will not ship a DC platform from Europe or the Middle East over the Atlantic to the US. So either we build up the supply chain fairly fast in the US and capabilities, and there's the IPF, the International Partnering Forum, coming up in April, which is a big conference trying to get the people together. So we have some forum, sort of a forum on the offshore platform side.
Right.
But we have suppliers coming over, developers coming over, utilities, and supply chain resources going to be.
How far away do you think we are, from getting something licensed, permitted, designed, built? How far out are we?
We have to build something. I mean, there's Vineyard is out there, right? I think they're just gonna have some permitting challenges at the moment, but that's about 2 or 3 years. I mean, we should have the first thing in the water coming.
Okay.
But looking at the others, I mean, the targets are ambitious. So it's really a matter of how you collaborate with Europe.
Okay.
Right. What you can basically build over there, ship over, how much you can split resources, supply chain in general. So again, you can maybe have some fabricators building a smaller secondary steel here in the US.
Right.
But again, it needs to be looked at. There's a lot of moving parts in there, and a lot of people basically have to say.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to switch gears on you a little bit here. I want to kind of get to know you a little better, right, for myself and the audience here. So let's switch gears. We're going to kind of go personal and professional. We'll start with professional. What are some tools, professional tools that you use on a regular basis that have helped you get to where you are, helped you be successful, make good decisions, continue to progress in your career? What are some of give me 3 real quick that you lean on?
Yeah, I mean, and that was hard. I mean, I was thinking about this a little, and mainly with my transition here as well. I mean, a big tool, believe it or not, is LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I'm really using this on a daily basis. One of the things, I'm pretty good at networking. I keep contact with my former colleagues. There's no real company that I would not like to work with again. There's no personality that I just despise and wouldn't reach out to for some advice or just re-engage. So LinkedIn is one of my prime tools. You find out a lot about what's going on in the market. If
Sure.
you have some time, actually I take the time to read through some articles, and not necessarily only offshore, but also what's happening in the transmission business in general. What I'm always looking into, and that's maybe because I had to move on so many times. Also, some recruiting partners. How they doing? Who are they actually looking for? Where's the constraints? Again, we're talking resources all the time, but what expertise are people looking for? Also, just funny, I help people, putting together the resumes or just pointing them in the right direction where to get a professional made resume, try to hook people up that I know. So LinkedIn, I think, is one of my major tools, if you could say so. Other than that, I'm sitting on the phone.
Yeah.
And email. I mean, that's the main thing. There's always company specific software out there for review drawings, sharing documents,
Sure.
different databases. But I think LinkedIn is at least in my trade. Again, rebuilding my network, feeling around, connecting with folks that you only see on an email, maybe, right? And he was on a call. just like, see what his background is,
Sure.
ping him on, and maybe give him a call later on again, just like chat a little bit to know better.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, you can get a ton of texture, to your point, right? You're on these calls, emails, whatever. There's a lot of people. There's no face and to the name, and you can really dial in and get some depth, which is interesting, right? Because I mean, it lends itself to other conversations. It's funny what you have in common sometimes that you would never have known otherwise. So that's that's a big deal. So let me just talk about just your daily life. So what routines in your daily life are fairly non-negotiable? I mean, looking at how you tick. I mean, from the time you get up to go to bed, just maybe one or two things. What are the things that are they got to happen every day to keep you on point?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the one is basically constant. The only constant in my life, I think, is getting in the office early.
Okay. How early?
And that's not only mine. That's the real part. So the folks that come after me.
Yeah.
So coffee, that really gets me going. Second thing, I'm in US. I'm on Mountain Time. So first thing I need to do is catching up with my folks over in Europe. Either I already have meetings set up in the morning at about 7. Basically go through what's pending.
Sure.
But also catch up and try to call folks where we have some missing items, where we have some challenges, where I'm overdue on some feedback on contracts that we just need to put in place, an NDA that's flying around somewhere where I couldn't get the signature on.
Right.
And once I got this done, then I go into my emails and basically do my day.
Okay.
Right? I mean, what do I need to prepare for next week? What's coming up? Like with the IPF, the conference that I said, need to be prepared. So I just like do my stuff internally with our business development manager. Interact with the conference organizers. So basically, making sure that we get the data that they need, presentations, personal data of the participants. And that's basically it. I continuously, I'm not a big fan in just like, having my day hammered out in regards of looking into emails only every 30 minutes.
Sure.
So, I constantly screen if there's something and, because if you might miss something that needs immediate attention.
Yep.
If it's sitting around and in my line of work, it is that way, right? You get something, just like be on it immediately and then got it over with already. So you don't have to follow up the next day, really. It's just like, just maybe drop an email if there's any further information required. So that's my regular day. So
right.
Like I said, early calls Europe, some emails, and then getting started into my personal.
You just got to get cranking. No, it's good. I like that. I appreciate how you frame that. For you, sounds like it's very important to get that right first start in the day. Where you're structured, you're aligned, chronologically as far as the work that you need to do, the people taking into consideration what's been done, what needs to be done, and kind of monitoring that throughout the day with a good cup of coffee. That never hurts. I like that.
To be sitting there, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I switching gears. I like to bounce around. So, this is kind of a sequence of questions. But what do you think's been the biggest success of your career to date, and why?
Biggest success. I think moving over here to US permanently.
Okay.
Most of the folks that are coming from Europe are on a secondment for 2 or 3 years. For Cape Wind, I really want to do this offshore thing, right? And I thought, once we get this Cape Wind done, there's just like, ample business over here. So I was not really worried about moving here and not having a ticket back, right? I mean, that's a big thing. Having a local contract, you move here, you said, that's it, just deal with it. If you're here on a delegation, you come over, I mean, you do your job, but again, just like, it's safe to say you're going home, right?
It's different. Yeah, absolutely.
It's taken care.
Absolutely.
So I think that was the biggest thing. And obviously convincing my wife, to make that and take the challenge with me. So, and she's still with me, so we're still happily married.
You must be doing everything right, man. That's good. I love it. I love it. Well, I got to follow up with the other question too. Is what do you think the biggest failure? What was maybe the toughest hit that you took in your career? I mean, the reason I like these questions is because myself and anybody watching, you get a lot out of that, right? I mean, you get an insight into where someone had a big success and why, but also sometimes the biggest learnings are always the mistakes that we made or the biggest hit that we took. Sometimes that propels us more than anything, really. So I always like to kind of show both sides of that coin.
Yeah, and again, good question. Out of the top of my head, I wouldn't say, I took a lot of hits, right?
Sure.
I made a lot of decisions, which, in hindsight, most probably I wouldn't have taken, if I knew what I know now, right?
Sure. Oh, hey, 2020 hindsight, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you take a decision, at a certain point in time, with all the circumstances that are there surround you. And I remember I quit my first job. The office was just like going bankrupt, and I thought don't wait it out. So I just changed jobs, started with a big company. They laid me off, about 6 months later. They just outsourced, and I was just redundant, so I was gone. That was a big blow because, I was thinking, well, maybe I should have stayed with the others, maybe, something that would have developed out of that, which actually did not. But, that was a hit. On the other hand, that was my entrance into international business, right? It was a big international company. So, all of a sudden, coming from my little town where I was raised and, was working, all of a sudden I was, on an SAP workshop in London, right? I was at a team meeting in Amsterdam. I was working on projects in the Middle East. So that got me the taste and got me intrigued. So, and I say, you never go back, right? So from then on, I wanted something similar. And again, I had better ones and good ones. I was working a startup, which was great in a telecom back in the days until the bubble burst in 2000. So again, take a step back. So, looking at it, I don't think that there's a big failure in my life. Just like, you take the opportunity or you don't.
Right.
Here's the thing. And, on both sides, you have to face reality, right? The big thing that you thought you achieved might turn out, okay, not so good.
Exactly.
But again, looking at it, I'm back in offshore wind. That's what I wanted to do. I drive into the office. I'm heading west, so straight to the Rockies, which is a stunning sight. And again, I'm doing what I like. I have the similar challenge. I want to build something new. I know a lot of folks. I think I got a fairly good reputation in the market.
Sure.
I have a pretty easy time to connect with folks and, build a relationship, whether you need it professionally or not.
Right.
But, I can always reach out. So again, going back, took a couple of blows. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you see that there were some changes there.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you are what you are. You take your hits, you take the opportunities.
Yeah.
And you learn. That's basically it. Like I said, I wouldn't have made some decisions now that I did then.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, here I am where I never expected to be. But I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy where I am, and life's good.
Life's good, man. I love it. No, I think that we're definitely a product of our decisions. And the knife always cuts both ways. I was talking to someone earlier about that reality, and only wanting to see one side of it, and that's just not real. It's fantasy. But we are a product of our decisions. We are where we are today. You're in a good spot. You love what you do. You're in a great location. It's something that you're very passionate about. So, that's and not everybody can say that. So, I think the sum total in the end, I think is always good. Even the big hits, we learn a lot from. So, let me ask you, so here's another question. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? In all your professional career, we'll keep it to professional career for a moment. What's the best piece of advice you ever got that you think back, now and again, and you're like, man, that was gold.
Well, maybe not so piece of advice. You go through your professional career, you meet people, and my benefit was always, I was always like, or maybe I just took the advice from others. I was always able to work with very experienced guys. We're happy to share their knowledge, and young, enthusiastic, motivated teams, right? So I was always good in the mix, and I was always willing to take advice. Let's put it that
Right.
way. Not a specific one, but basically, you know, let some people, you know, tell me how things are done, because, and that's not easy for me because I have an issue with authority.
I love it. You're being honest. This is good.
Well, you know, it's just
It's tough. It's tough for us.
and I think, you know, that might, you know, just like be honest to yourself. I think that's one of the key things, right? If somebody tells you you're wrong, just like, you know, at least try to admit it, right?
Sure.
And so, you know, again, going through my life, I worked about a year. For about a year, I worked with somebody in the dot-coms back then.
Okay.
You know, after, you know, the whole bubble burst, I mean, you know, we parted, everybody went his ways, but we're still in contact. I mean, you know, it's what, 20 years ago now.
Okay.
And, I still, you know, he became somebody that I call to get some outside advice, you know,
Sure.
in decisions, right?
Yeah.
You know, does that make sense? You know, should I make the move? And since he's not that close to me, he has a whole different perspective.
Absolutely.
So, again, you know, I think there was no real specific advice. There were lots of advice that you know, people gave me.
Sure.
Some I just like neglected, rejected.
Yeah.
Some that I basically took seriously. And I think one of the key things is just like, you know, be honest. I mean, if you like what you do, you know, keep going. If you don't, try to change something, right? Because you don't want to suffer, you know, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
There's always a reason not to do things, right? And you can always make something up why, you know, should.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing if you admit that it's just like something you don't like to do, or you don't dare, or you don't want to take the risk.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that I think is more honest. And you know, now sitting here over in the US, you know, your friends change. You know, there's some friends you still have, but you can't talk them openly. They don't want to hear what you're doing. And there are some friends that you basically see less, but you pick up the phone and you can just like talk like you just like, you know, met yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I'm over explaining it.
No, it's all good. It's good.
I don't think there's a specific advice you know, I've been given that basically influenced my life, but a lot of different views on life, different people, you know, different experiences. I met people or meet people that you know, been on their job for the last 30 years. Right? Mm-hmm. And then I meet people who just like had to move on. You know, I had a new challenge every 2 or 3 years.
Right. So, well, that's good. I mean, the follow-up question to that was, you know, what's advice that you have for somebody? And I think you basically covered that. You know, be open to what other people have to say. You know, whether you agree or not, you take it on a case by case. But being open to that reality that there's a possibility that there's something that they're saying that could be beneficial to you. To try to be humble enough to see that for what it is, because it may come back one day where it is that helps you, and maybe you were too myopic in the moment or too close to it, right? That you didn't really appreciate perhaps the depth of the comment that was being made and the value this person was trying to offer. Because sometimes things come across maybe the wrong way, or maybe the timing is a little off, right? It always happens, but I like your perspective. You know, nonetheless, you know, be open and listen. You know, and be clear. You know, there's reasons why you want to do something. There's reasons why you don't want to do something. But if you understand those and you can own it, then proceeding on that path is a good decision. Yeah. You know, so awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, these go quick. We're coming up on our time frame here, so it goes so fast. So anyway, one of the things I want to round out with, you know, if people want to get in touch with you and they want to, you know, piggyback on this conversation, or they got thoughts, they're in your space, what's the best way to reach you or to get a hold of you?
You know, we're coming back where we started. LinkedIn is actually best way in getting in contact with me. You know, rather than just like, you know, handing out my email or my cell phone. I'm pretty responsive. Like I said, I mean, I'm helping folks. You know, I'm people that are looking for jobs, looking for, you know, who to engage with. I like to refer people, you know, that I trust. So I think that would be the best thing in getting in touch with me. And like I said, I'm always happy to chat a little, you know, and then, you know, if to follow up further, you know, after work, you know, and like I said, I'll have a big network,
Okay.
I mean, you and I, we know each other for quite a while now, right?
For a while now, yeah. You'll go back.
That's the best way.
Okay, so reach out on LinkedIn. Okay, that's good. All right, well, we'll anybody who sees it will now know that. And but yeah, I want to thank you for making time to come on the show. I enjoy you being here, visiting. We go back a ways, and enjoyed a nice friendship. And having you on, talk about the work and kind of what makes you tick is really what's behind the show in its capacity. So thanks for making the time and being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
You bet. So I'll tell you what, if you want to be a guest on the show, go to intergeniuspodcast.com. You can fill out the intake form. That'll come over to us. We'll take a look at it and see what we can do to schedule you. But intergeniuspodcast.com is where you go if you want to be a guest. If you want to jump in the hot seat where Stephan had the courage to jump in, you know how to find us. So remember, there's a genius inside of all of us. It's up to you to discover it, to harness it, and to share it with the world. So the question I always end it with is, what's your inner genius? Thank you.
This is the Padua Podcast Network. PaduaPodcastNetwork.com.